Alright, so what I'm going to do is a simple Google search for the name L7M. Yes, it's kind of a weird name, but this is the name of the Brazilian street artist L7M. What you're going to see is that L7M does Graffiti Birds. You're going to see a bird head that looks very realistic, and then the rest of the body area is then abstracted into the graffiti style, which is made up of pretty random shapes, lines, colors. Lines go in all sorts of different directions. Kind of evokes a sense of chaos. Take a look at some more of his work. Here you go, you've got a bird, looks like a chickadee, but it's the entire body. Notice how the head is realistic. The body is super stylized. You can see some aspects of wings there, although he's made them abstracted. He's turned them into shapes. They don't look like realistic wings, more like a group of shapes that are descending. Here you'll see a hawk where it's just the head of the bird, and then he has graffitied the neck area. So this is kind of another option in his catalog of art. Take a look at another example here, toucan. Again, the head is realistic, whereas the neck body area is stylized. You may see some aspects of wings there at the top, but for the most part, the only realistic thing on there is the head. There's a bunch more on here. Feel free to look around. Maybe you can get some inspiration from the artist L7M. So basically I'm just pulling up Google and I'm typing in a bird. In this case I like woodpeckers. So I typed in woodpecker. I'm going to go to images and I'm going to go to search tools, and over there on size I'm going to click large because I want a clear image. I don't want anything pixelated. So all these images should be large images that are clear quality. Holy crap, there are a ton of woodpeckers, a ton of different types of woodpeckers. I like the pileated woodpecker. So I'm going to go ahead and narrow my search. Ooh, look at that. All sorts of pileated woodpeckers. I think I want to focus in on the head area, so I'm going to kind of look for an image where the head is really clear and dominant. One in the center is pretty nice. The right there looks pretty nice. Let's keep searching here. Lots of woodpeckers. I've never seen so many woodpeckers in all of my life. Holy cow. Ooh, look at that one right there. Booyah, that one looks sweet. He's even got a little crumb of food in his mouth. How cute. I like that one, so I'm going to save it. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it out to my desktop. And I'm going to get out of Google. I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Word. Blank document. I'll go ahead and kind of zoom out here so I can see the entire page. And I'm going to drag my woodpecker picture into Word. Reference images need to be 6 by 9 inches. Okay, everybody's picture has to be the same format because I want all the projects to be the same size. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and format the picture. I'm going to make it so that it's square. Hit the little dog button so that I can move it around. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. Once in format, I should be able to crop it. And I want to focus just on the bird's head. I don't care about the suet feeder there. So I'm going to crop this so that I have a rectangle around just the woodpecker's head. If I go in a little bit more here and up. So 6 by 9 inches should be a rectangle. Once I've got this thing cropped the way I want it, you can see that it's only about 3 inches by 4 inches. So right there's about 4 and there's 3. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch this so that the top of the picture there is 6 inches wide by 9 inches long. I'm using the rulers that are on the side of the Word document and the top of the Word document. So I'm stretching it to make sure that it meets that 6 by 9 inch requirement. If it's a little less or a little more, that's okay, but you don't want it to be way off. So I'm going to go ahead and print that. Boom, done with my research. Okay, so I've got my picture printed out here, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to set up this drawing. So I've got a pre-cut piece of tracing paper here. It's cut to 6 by 9 inches. It fits exactly over my picture, perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and do an accurate tracing of this. Probably going to be a little difficult to try to hold the tracing paper down with your hand, so you might want to grab a little snippet of tape there, apply one to the top and one to the bottom so your paper doesn't move. And again, we're going for an accurate tracing. What I'm trying to do here is to help you guys out by creating a line drawing to do a grid enlargement of, rather than from a picture. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this. Again, you want to be as accurate as you can with your tracing. Try to get every little nook and cranny. I recommend that you add some lines for feather directions, just so that you know the direction that the feathers go, and that's going to help when you go to color the bird, so that you color in the direction that the feathers go. I need to lift my paper up here so I can see what direction the feathers go on the body portion of the woodpecker. You might have to do that too. And once you have your tracing done, you can go ahead and take that off of your reference image. We want to put the reference image aside for later use. And if you want, you can tape your tracing paper to a white piece of paper so that you can see the line drawing a little bit better. Now is when we are going to apply a grid to the 6 by 9 piece of paper. Okay, it's just the tracing paper, not the entire white paper. So I'm going to apply a 1-inch grid. You all should hopefully know how to do that by now, but I'm putting a dash at every inch, and I'm measuring from the same side of the paper. Measure from the top down every inch, and connect the dots that are across from each other with a straight line. If only it were this easy and fast. And so there we go. We have our line drawing gridded with a 1-inch grid. So I've got a piece of white paper cut to 12 by 18 inches, and I applied a 2-inch grid to that white piece of paper. Once you have the grid completed, you're ready to do a grid enlargement drawing using your traced image. And you want to try to draw this as accurately as possible. Draw box by box. If you need to subdivide areas or mark the halfway points, please do so, because this needs to be accurate. We want the head of the bird to look super realistic. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. And there we have our accurately drawn grid enlargement. Okay, so once we finished our initial drawing, we're going to go ahead and take a thin outlining pen, and we're just going to outline this bad boy with smooth, clean lines. Okay, we don't want it to look chicken scratchy or messy just yet. Okay, we still have a bird that we want to look realistic, so our outlines should be nice and clean, nice and neat, Take your time. If you happen to stop when you're outlining a line, go ahead and try to pick up where you left off. And again, I'm going to fast forward this. That is sweet. Outlined bird. Take an eraser, get rid of all the pencil, including the grid. And there we have our nicely outlined bird drawing. Kind of looks like a rabbit. Okay, so the first step in abstracting your bird or applying graffiti is I'm just going to start to add some directional lines with a skinny outlining pen. And this is kind of hard to explain, but it's mostly just kind of random. I'm just picking kind of a point and I'm drawing a line out away from it. I'm kind of maybe aligning some of the lines up with the direction of the feathers, and then others I'm not. My goal here is to kind of break up the space of the neck area and the background area, the bottom background area, as well as sort of the body. So I'm just kind of putting lines. They go different directions, they overlap each other, but I don't want to take attention away from the main part of the head, because that's going to be rendered realistically, whereas everything else is going to be abstracted. Basically, I'm going to go ahead back into my outline drawing. I'm going to start to thicken some lines just with my skinny outlining pen. This is going to kind of give it kind of a stylized quality. Again, it's random. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to thicken and what you want to leave thin. I'm going to take a French curve here and start to add some kind of curvy lines. This kind of mimics L7M's style, where he has some kind of curved lines that are going off the page into the background. So that's called a French curve. Should have a few of those around. Next, you're going to take a thick Sharpie and we're just going to thicken some more lines. I'm going to go ahead and thicken some of the straight lines. I'm going to thicken some of the curved lines. I'm going to thicken some of the feather lines. Again, this is a random process. I'm just trying to break things up, to abstract it. And again, I'm going to speed this up. Lines spaced apart. You got some lines that are really close together. You got lines that are staggered. They're all possibilities. Nothing's really right and nothing's wrong. Going back and thickening some lines. Again, I'm leaving some lines thin. It's just a stylized quality of the graffiti style. Go back and add more lines. Once I've got my outlines finished, I'm ready to start adding some patterns and some shapes. And this is as random as you can be right here. This is almost like the Zen Doodle or Zentangle project, where you fill little tiny shapes with different varying patterns. And again, this is completely up to you what you want to do. You can do lines, you can do shape patterns, you can color areas in, stripes, all kinds of things. This is completely up to you. You may want to look up some graffiti artwork on the internet and maybe take some different styles and attributes and apply them to your project. I'm just putting a random zigzag sort of lightning bolt shape in this little chunk here. And we'll go ahead and color that in. It really is as random and as simple as that. The key here is just to apply it to a wide area. If you repeat patterns, that's okay. At this point you can still outline more things, you can add more lines, it's not a problem. Here I'm going to stylize my curves a little bit. Maybe add some dot patterns, some hatched lines. And I'm just trying to fill the space, break the space up into more complex, chaotic area. There is no right or wrong answer. I'm going to go back in with my thin marker and add some patterns with my thin marker. Lines, patterns, shapes, cross hatching, directional lines. There you have it. So again, the majority of the face or the head is still realistic, and the neck part and the back part of the head I've really stylized and tried to turn it into a graffiti field. Coloring, same rules apply as always. For the bird's head, again, we're going for realistic here, realism, so we want to shade and layer this. I recommend coloring it in base layers and applying more and more layers on top of each other. So I know that the top of my bird's head is red. I'm going to combine a bunch of reds and oranges, browns and blues to make that appear really red. I've got a light pressure right now. As I start to add more layers, I'm going to firm the pressure up. And you're going to notice on the top of the bird's head here, my pencil strokes are going in the direction that the fur is going in the reference image. That's how I mimic the feathers. Again, applying more and more red and orange to make the color more bold. Here's some dark blue for some shadow areas, pressing harder with some red to just keep brightening up that area. Directional lines are the key to recreating bird feathers. You want to make sure that your strokes are going in the right direction. So there we have it, bird head finished. Now comes the fun part of coloring the graffiti areas and the patterns. Just as we did with the outlining and drawing of the graffiti areas, the coloring is going to be the same. You might want to take some colors that are in the actual bird's head and apply them to your graffiti area, but then you can also take colors that are going to kind of complement that. So with red's dominant in this bird. The complement of red is a green color. I have some light blue that's in the bird, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. It's pretty bright. Graffiti is bright. Here's the kind of the lime green I'm talking about. It's a complement to red. It's really bright. So basically I'm just going to go in here and start to just kind of randomly color. I'm going to do some shading here from dark to light in this little chunk. Maybe just color in some little shapes green. Maybe this shape I want to kind of shade. And I'm kind of trying to disperse this evenly throughout. I don't want it all right next to each other. I'm kind of going all around so that the green is evenly spaced. Maybe I take a dark green now and I layer a green over it to give that some contrast so it pops. It really makes the color stand out. Again, graffiti contains bright colors that are eye-catching. So if you layer darker color over a lighter color, you're going to create that contrast. Maybe I take this dark green and I add some pattern or some stripes with it. It's another option. Not everything has to be shaded. Again, this is random. I'm using some different blues. Again, I got kind of a bright orangey yellow color. Coloring some areas in, shading some areas, adding stripes, adding patterns. A lot of this is just repetition of different colors. And again, I'm trying to space it out in different areas. Bring in some brighter sort of magenta color, some red areas. I'm going to add some thick, bold red lines. Maybe I can use a different color for lines. Random process. I'm just trying to create sort of a chaotic, colorful field of shapes, patterns, and colors. Kind of zoom out so you can kind of see it all kind of coming together here. Hopefully you kind of get the idea. And here you got a somewhat finished product. Again, the bird is realistic, the head of the bird's realistic, and then there's just a ton of graffiti all over the place.